Hello, everyone, and welcome to another unstoppable conversation. And I have Savio in the house today, and I'm so excited to have you. How are you doing today, Savio?
I'm great, LaDonna. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. Now, Savio, tell us a little bit about you, your business, and how do you help others?
Yeah. So I'm a keynote speaker. I'm a TEDx speaker as well. I'm a board certified wellness coach, best-selling author, journalist who at this point has interviewed over 2,000 thought leaders, change makers, and even celebrities. And the title of two-time cancer survivor, not a title I wanted, but a title that I earned the hard way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. So my focus right now is in healthcare leadership. It's really talking about what happens after you survive the crisis when your old operating system no longer works. How do you regain the sense of not only normality, but functioning? And so for me, I am really clear as to the fact that the things that happen to me, the wounds that I see and that others don't see, are not what guide me on a day-to-day basis. It's what I choose to do with the walk rather than the wound. And so for me, I'm really focused on using not only my professional expertise, but my lived experience to really allow people to see that things happen, but we can choose to find ways, tools, resources to move forward. Because I think it's important that we not just focus on the painful parts or the discomfort parts, that we focus on the things that can make us better.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you said that you're a keynote speaker. What do you usually speak about when you're speaking?
Sure. So I speak about something called the post-crisis leadership gap, this gap that happens after the crisis ends, and how do you move forward? So that's reducing cognitive load, cognitive fatigue, especially when it comes to healthcare leaders, because they themselves have a lot of responsibility that they're shouldering. They have to not only deal with high stakes with their own environment and their own teams, but the other patient in front of them. It's serious. It's not a joke. And so for me, it's really about allowing them to regain clarity and composure in those moments and also find ways to allow themselves to feel like they're actually contributing to the situation. There's so much disruption, LaDonna, right now happening, social disruption, political disruption. There's technological disruption with AI that I think it's important for us to have a semblance of what makes us human and how we can actually not only regulate our own system, our nervous system, and our body systems, but our functioning on a day-to-day basis.
You talked a lot about different items that you talk about. Is some of that mental as well?
Absolutely. So obviously the base point is this idea of self-regulation. When I was in the hospital and I had a stem cell transplant, so I had a relapse in June of 2024. My initial cancer was in 2014. So I had 10 years of remission. I didn't think it would ever come back, but obviously I knew that it could. I was in the hospital for 29 days for a stem cell transplant. And in those 29 days, what did I have at my disposal? What does every belief system teach you that's accessible to all? Silence and stillness. I had those only two things at my corner. And so those things really helped me sink into what was actually happening, but also allow myself this idea of psychological distancing. Yes, I was the person in the hospital tied to all those medical equipment, but I also was someone much more than that. And so it's not about detaching yourself. It's not about disassociating, but allowing yourself that distance. I mentioned the self-regulation. What can I control? Can I control my red blood cells? No. Can I control my white blood cells? No. Can I control my platelets? No. But I can control how I deal with the doctors when they do the rounds. I can control what I want and what I don't want. I can control how I reduce my own inner stress that I was going through. So I chose to put everything on hold in my whole life. I just focused on healing and healing alone. I was like, I can't do anything much more than this. This is a relapse. After 10 years, I have to give it 100% of my effort. And then something else too is that initially we were all taught that intellect was like the number one thing that we had. Then we were taught, no. Emotional intelligence. Yeah. That's what you need to have. But now actually the science and the research is pointing to metacognition. It's the thinking of the thinking. So it's part of that psychological distancing. And so how do you get through that? People are like, well, how do you get to that? I mean, what if I'm not in the hospital like you were to discover that? Journaling, prayer, meditation, walking in silence, breathing exercises, many things you can do in order to get to that flow state that I discovered. And then at the end of the day, button that all up is this idea that I speak really greatly about, especially in my keynotes, is this idea of adaptive resilience. Everyone knows about resilience is bouncing back. I guess you could call me a poster child of that. But really, adaptive resilience is when you're in the doo-doo, when you're in the SHIT, how do you adapt to what's going on? How do you remain flexible? How do you make the connections? How do you figure out strategies? So I knew for myself that I had to be present with the doctors, because it's not just them treating me, it's me treating myself as well. So they're a reflection of what I give. So it's a partnership. And so I deferred to them for their expertise, obviously. I deferred to them for the medicine, but I also reframed the chemo and the drugs that were going in me. I didn't see them as poison. I saw them as an elixir, as mana from the universe, as something holy that was designed to do what it's supposed to do. I just needed to surrender to it, to accept it, and to be present for it. And so that's what I chose to do.
Absolutely. Now, you know what I heard when you said all of that, it's all about the mindset, how you think about what's going in and what's going out. And I teach a lot about mindset in the business world and mindset in the trauma world. Those are my two topics that I really teach about and speak about. And it's all about the mindset, the trauma part and the business part. Everything you do in life is about how you think about it. You know, you have a flat tire. How are you going to respond to the flat tire? Are you going to whine about it, kick the other tires? Or are you just going to call the tow truck and have them come and fix it? I mean, it's just as simple as that. But in the human nature, we always want to growl about everything. Then when trauma hits you, you really get knocked on your wheels and you really have to observe everything around you. And I know that you've experienced that not only once, but twice in your life, which makes it even more difficult. So if somebody calls upon you, what is usually their first thing that they want to know about? Why are they coming to you, the majority of people?
So it's really funny that you mentioned how we react to it as well, because there's a reason why there's a saying that says doctors don't make great patients, because they can dole out and they can tell you what should be done, but can you implement them? And that's the human nature. That's the human condition, right? And so for me, it's really about, they come to me because they have the cognitive load, cognitive fatigue, they're overwhelmed, they feel like they have to perform rather than actually integrate or actually do. Especially if you have a huge role like CEOs or CMOs. I'm actually interviewing them now for a series on the operating system of healthcare leadership. And they themselves say this is a constant thing. We have to actually put this armor on and we have to show. And then now they're putting tools like AI on top of it. And I'm getting further and further away from my patients rather than getting closer and closer. I started medicine in the first place. The other thing, obviously, is really that clarity and composure aspect, because you don't get clarity from just constantly doing. You get clarity from having the space to breathe, having the space to actually integrate, having the space to actually create insight and wisdom. And so those are the two main things. But it also dovetails nicely into right before I had my relapse, about a year and a half, I did a TEDx talk. And in the TEDx talk, it was entitled 7 Minutes to Wellness, How to Love Your Inner Stranger. And people are like, wait, inner stranger, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, well, I left it nebulous on purpose. I left it sort of vague. And they're like, so what's the inner stranger for you? And I'm like, the inner stranger for me is that young person that never felt grounded. I never felt like I really, really belonged. Yes, I was friends with a lot of people. I didn't feel like I was sort of outcast, but I just didn't feel connected. And then she's like, oh, the person I was speaking, she's like, oh, okay, I know what the inner stranger for me is. It's that female, professional female that I can't live up to it, that great mother that I want to be, that I can't emulate, or that great sibling that I would, strive to be. And so for most of the time, they often feel like, well, okay, so, what's going on? So in the TEDx talk, I talk about this reboot called the Aloha reboot. As we all know, in Hawaiian, aloha means hello. So it's hello to your inner self. And so A stands for acknowledge. So acknowledge where you are. Don't pretend. Do a brain dump on exactly what's happening. L stands for listening. And so in Hawaiian healing, there's a modality called huna healing. And in huna healing, they believe that you can actually talk to the body. The body sends not only sensations, but sends actual insight to your body. Now, I don't expect you to talk to your body in front of other people, but that's what they believe. And so I talk about this from a three brains, head, heart, and gut perspective, right? What are they resonating? What are they sending you? So that's the L. O stands for opening. So open yourself up to that information. You're only exploring yourself. You're not doing anything sort of outside of your normal activities. H stands for harnessing. So harness that information, try to make the mental connections, try to see what fits and what doesn't, because maybe not all of it fits. And A is acting, but it's a caveat. And I would say use courage to act, because it takes a lot of courage to make changes.
That is a lot of listening. That is the word that I feel like none of us really listen to ourselves or others enough. And while you were talking, that is the word that came to mind, is listening. Listen to your heart, body, and soul. Listen to your gut. Listen to what's coming in and what's going out. Listen to what's going on around you. So this has been a brilliant talk. We've learned a lot. Tell me, is there anything else that we've maybe left out? I know you've gotten a book out there. You said that. So tell me a little bit about your book.
Sure. So I did a book about 4 years ago, and it's called I Survived Cancer. Here is How I Did It. 35 Cancers Share Their Journey. And so the book actually came to be because I did 200 interviews with cancer survivors. So this is before my relapse in June of 2024. And in that, I wanted all the cancers to be stated. All different ethnicities. I wanted different people to speak to that. And so I took 35 of their stories, told my own, and fortunately became a bestseller in many categories. But for me, it wasn't even about the bestseller status. It's the fact that the information resonated. I made sure that I told every person, because it was a compilation of interviews I did with them, that at the end of it, I wanted you to promote yourself. They're like, wait, that's really odd. Why do you want me to promote myself? I said, because I want people to know that you're living, that you're thriving, that you're being, that you're doing, and they can actually verify that with receipts if they go to your website. And so that's what the book is called. And so another book is germinating now since my relapse, and really focused on this idea of leadership and that gap after crisis of how do we regain not normality, because that's not going to happen. How do we regain a semblance of ourselves and our authenticity? How do we lead effectively? Because leadership, what is leadership? It's not always in the corporate setting. Leadership is, and why I like to speak about leadership, especially on stages, is because not, especially since my voice was muted for 16 months of treatment, was the fact that that trickles down in so many ways. I can talk to leaderships and that affects their teams, that affects the organization. Then it trickles to their community. It trickles to their family. It trickles to their partner. And so I can make a lot of waves with that. And I think it's really important that we all use our voice, especially in the days that we're living now with AI that can create content for us. Where is that original thought of human to human connection? Where can we actually mirror one another? Where can actually we see that we are in this together? I have a sister, a sibling, who, let's just say, is on a different political spectrum than I am. And for a long time, we had a lot of tension. But what I came to realize, especially after my relapse, is we're never going to move, right? Our both glaciers are where they are. That's just what it is. But we can agree on things. We both love our parents. Thankfully, they're still alive. We both want the best for them. So let's focus on that. We both love food and we both love travel. So let's talk about those things. Let's talk about the things that actually connect us rather than separates us. And I know this is a phrase that a lot of people use, but I think it's very important now, especially with so much turmoil and disruption and adversity, not only that we're facing in the US, but that the world is facing in general.
Absolutely. Now, where can we pick up your book?
Sure. So they can get it on my website. So it's called Savio P. Clemente. Of course, the book is sold in many different outlets like Amazon, but it's Savio P. Clemente. On the website, you can also find my keynote work, my TEDx talk, 7 Minutes to Wellness, How to Love Your Inner Stranger. I also, every Wednesday, like today, I put out a series on the three brains, the head, heart, and gut intelligence. My interviews, especially the series I just did with CMOs and CEOs and their perspective on the healthcare leadership operating system. And I think I still have a few more spots left for 2026 for keynoting. So if anyone has any openings for healthcare leadership or leadership in general, please let me know. And then on social media, I'm at every platform at The Human Resolve. And why that name? Because resolve is the only thing we have, LaDonna.
Exactly.
That's the only thing we have.
Absolutely. Now, before we go today, is there anything else that you want this audience to hear about from you?
I think it's important for us, especially in this time frame that we live in, to allow our position, our leadership, our titles, allow them to not define us, but allow them to allow people to connect with us. So in other words, don't let that be the leading thing. Let that be the way that people trust you. I think it's very easy for us to put armors, and even myself, when people look at my credentials, they're like, wow. And I'm like, no, I'm a human underneath that, and someone who's been bruised and battered. But just because I've been bruised and battered doesn't mean I can't walk forward.
Absolutely. I love how you said walk forward. I have a friend that has went through some things that you've been through, the relapse, everything. And she has a statement, fall forward. It's not fall down, it's fall forward. And those little words like that means a lot when you really sit and listen and think about them. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of our listeners. Make sure you go back and listen to this again, and listen to all the other special people that we have had on our podcast previously, and you will learn so much, and just really listen to what they have to say. Thank you so much for being here, Savio, and have a blessed day, everyone. And until next time on Unstoppable Conversations.
Thanks, LaDonna.
Thank you.